Hey guys, welcome back to the Creatives Podcast. We're your hosts, Ben and Elia. And this week our guest is Greg Edgar. He's a partner and CEO at Alter Ego, Canada's premier post house, with projects under their belt like Mad Max Fury Road. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to get started, I think we'd like to hear just a little bit about how you really got into the world of post-production, maybe just a little background on yourself and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know, probably like many kids coming out of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I just sort of went into a university doing sort of general kind of arts degree at University of Western Ontario. So I did 3 years there, and then I sort of took a year off and just worked for a year. And during that year, I sort of realized I kind of wanted to get into media or broadcast or some sort of form of that. And so I had applied to Ryerson, which is now the Toronto Metropolitan University, I guess, for their radio and television arts program. Got into that. And so I went into that program, kind of still not really knowing what I wanted to do, whether it be radio or more TV or things like that. Anyhow, in second year was when the sort of the TV portion or video was kind of introduced to us, and then I just sort of really liked that, and I had friends who were in film, and then I just got very interested in editing actually, and so I. In third year, kind of got an internship at an editing boutique in Toronto called Third Floor Editing, which is not around anymore, but it kind of got rolled into what's now Rooster Post. So there was some background there, but and that was the 90s. It was a crazy time in advertising. It was a ton of fun, and it was super busy though. It was a lot of work. So I actually didn't love it, to be honest. It was kind of crazy. But then I met this awesome now longtime friend Alex Eaton, and so he was starting a company called Stealing Time Editing, and so I went with him, and it was just the two of us, and we literally walked the streets looking for space, and we started this small editing company. He was kind of putting everything on the line for this, and it took off. That was 97, and I was there until 05, and I became a partner there, and then I sort of ventured off into it to go to work at a different. I had never had any other experience at editing companies, and there were a few really good ones in Toronto. So I went to a place called Panic and Bob Editing, which unfortunately is no longer around. And I did not quite 2 years there, and then Alex sort of wooed me back into the Stealing Time fold. And part of that was because he was planning on opening this Alter Ego, and so he wanted me to. So I came back as a partner, and so that was 07, and that was the year that Alter Ego opened, but I was still an editor at Stealing Time until the end of 2010. And then in that time, there was some the EP left sort of near the end of 2010 at Alter Ego. And I was 40 years old. And I was I kind of want to do something different. I've been doing this editing thing now for 14, 15 years. It's really great, but things were changing. That was the onset of much more digital, much less film, and projects were getting massive in terms of the amount of footage shot and stuff like that. And editing was becoming I was kind of getting a little bit tired of it and the grind. And it was very competitive as well. I got my fair share, I think, of work, but there were a few other people who really got all the top stuff. Anyway, yeah, I just sort of approached Eric Whip and Alex Eaton and just sort of said, hey, what do you think? Why don't I become the EP? And it was what? I think they were kind of what? Anyway, I sold them on it. I sold them on the idea. Eventually it kind of sat in, and they thought, yeah, sure, why not? And yeah, it was great. We were 12, 13 people back then. And that was, I said, January 11. And yeah, it's 11 years ago now, I guess, 11 and a half almost. And the company since then has grown from 12, 13, 14 people to just over 40. And, we had 2 base lights and 2 flame suites. Now we've got 6 base lights and, 6 flames. I think we have 5 and 5 suites, but like we have the gear, and then we have, a CG department, motion graphics, like it's solid IT team, and like it's terrific. It's been great. We've worked on, lots of really cool projects, and like a lot of people have come and stayed, and a few have come and gone. Like there's like, I think the industry is sort of populated with many people who've sort of come through the doors at Alter Ego at one point or the other. So, we're proud of that. I wish a lot of them didn't leave, but we get it. So.
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, that's well, you mentioned how you kind of gravitated towards editing at the beginning of your career. What do you think like drove you to editing specifically? Was it something that kind of satisfied a creative itch for you, or what? Yeah, like what was it?
Yeah, I think so. Like I was mentioning, I had friends who were, kind of more in the film side of things, and who wanted to be writers and direct potentially, or things like that. And then I would hang out with them a lot, and there'd be this sort of all the talk of editing and how editing could really shape, a film or a project. Like, and I just kind of got into that a lot more, and like really started to investigate it. And then at school at Ryerson, or I would, always volunteer to sort of do the editing things. And then, it got really interesting to see how, you just change the order of some shots around. And it's like, wow, this is like a really different story now, or it's told differently, like, things like that. I think that's kind of what it was. Just like the impact that this sort of person kind of behind the scenes, like, has on a film or project that's like immense, right? Like, and it's sort of like, I think for a lot of people too, like it's sort of, they don't think about the editor, kind of like they don't think about the colorist, and like maybe like VFX. I think it's because every film now has like massive VFX and stuff like that. But like I think a lot of people don't think about those aspects of the industry, and I think that was really cool to me.
And from your experience, because you've been in the editing field for so long, what do you think separates a good editor from a great editor?
Oh man, that's a great question. I worked alongside some, like, what I would say like great editors in the past, and I don't know, like I think they just had kind of like an uncanny ability to really see the footage and tell the story and just get to it like kind of easily. I don't know, like they just have great vision, I suppose. I think a lot of people can tell the story. I think, maybe the great ones like throw something in there that's maybe not scripted or boarded, and like kind of like really pushes the project into like a new direction, or like, the surprises people, like the director even, or producers and things like that. That's just sort of like, wow, we didn't even think about doing that. So I think it's that. I think it's just sort of like not just sort of like, okay, well, here's the board, I'm going to just follow that, and this is what you asked for, so this is what I'm giving you. I think, the really good editors really just like push the bounds of the footage and like experiment a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was listening to another podcast with the editor for Dune, Joe Walker, and he was kind of talking about the same thing, and he was talking about how like he has a history as a composer. So he said that like the feeling of rhythm, he thinks is something that pushed like his career, over the top, because it's like that. Yeah, he sees like every project that he edits more so as this just like a project of rhythm. Like how can he get this feeling of like perfect continuity with the music and the sound and the way that the shots are cut, and it's like he's like he feels like he just approaches it from a different angle than most editors would.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, and I think that's absolutely true. I think there is a lot of like, like I probably wouldn't have used the word rhythm, but like the timing of stuff, right? And just how the flow, I guess, of a piece, how that kind of works, which sometimes in like advertising, which is mostly what I was doing, is like, when it's 30 seconds, you can't have too much flow sometimes, but other times it was, like incredibly important, like whether it's like a series of quick edits and then some like slower stuff, and I think that's too, like, maybe like some of the really good editors also like know when to just not put edits in, right? I think like a lot of young editors sort of have a tendency to over edit sometimes. And sometimes it's just like, let it play, let the scene play out. Like, it's like, you don't need 1,000 edits in something to be really good and impactful.
Yeah, I feel like that's like something that I feel like is hugely prevalent. Maybe due to the fact that like everybody's on social media these days, so it's like everybody's seeing these like quick like 3 to 6 second videos, and then it's like that's it. You know, like keep
Yeah.
me engaged, keep me engaged, keep me engaged, and like videos. I feel like a lot of the time, you know, like they don't have the proper room to breathe these days because editors or people who, like if you're cutting your own stuff, like you're just way too focused on like it needs to be like it needs to be going. You can't just like let it breathe,
Yeah.
let it take that little bit of time.
I'm telling you, like, go watch some films from the 70s and 80s, or even 90s, but like pre 90s. Like, they are. I tried to make my when my kids were younger watch like ET, and it takes 45 minutes for anything to happen in that film. It is like, even at me, like watching it, whatever that was, however many 20 years later. This was probably 10 years ago now.
Right.
It was like I was sitting there going, when something, I don't remember this being, but that was the way it was back in whenever that came out, 82 or 83 or 84, whatever that was. Like, that's the way films were made. And it's like, it's really cool. It's like these long scenes and you're sort of like, well, nothing's happening, but it's setting the whole stage for what's going to happen down. Like now, like you're right. Like, it's like the title sequence is the intro into this like crazy fast group of edits, whatever.
Well, that's what they do with trailers like nowadays. It's like you have to cut at the beginning of like a trailer. You cut like 5 seconds of really quick like huge moments in the movie in right at the beginning, just so you get people to actually watch it. Otherwise, it's like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, speaking of kind of like all those different like mediums to be able to watch things, just in your opinion, like what are your thoughts on those like 6 seconds, 15 seconds? And like if you had to choose, like what's the best way to tell a story? Like how long would that be?
Oh my gosh, I
Like
don't even know. I don't know if you can actually say there's sort of like a best way. Like it's incredible now, like the deliverables that we have to manage on things. It's usually there's a 30-second or 60-second piece, and then there's like all these shorter versions. Like, it used to just be sort of a 30 and a 15, and now there's like 9s and 6s, and then there's all the different aspect ratios of 9/16 and like squares, like for all the different like Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all that other stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I think, perhaps a lot of stuff is not ideal because they're trying to take one story and like put it into all these different formats. Whereas I think, but some like there's some things that you see on Instagram, for instance, that are like amazing and work really well. And they're like really short, but they probably were just written for that specifically, which is, and I think that's the issue, or the key, right? Is if something has to just be kind of made for whatever medium it's going to be on, and then if it's a good piece, it's a good piece. So.
Definitely. Well, I know, like, a few minutes ago you touched on, the beginning of Alter Ego. I'd love to just hear a little bit more about how, that all got started. Like, what was the inspiration behind your partners, first delving into that?
Yeah. So back, I guess sort of like mid late 2000s. So there wasn't a lot of choice when it came to colorists in Toronto. And, Eric Whip, he had been in Toronto before at Technicolor. And like, Toronto was a weird market in the sense that it was very hard for colorists to sort of break in and do well in the city. But Eric came in and like just wowed people. He was like so amazing to work with and really took off. But then, I'm not sure his exact reasons for leaving Technicolor, but I know he did kind of get an opportunity back in Australia. He's Australian, to work on, might have been Happy Feet or something like that. And he really wanted to go back and take the film. I think, it was maybe a little disillusioned at the commercial market in Toronto. Maybe it was partially the company, I'm not sure. But anyway, Alex, and we kind of managed to woo him back with like starting up this other company. And then Eric had, was a big reason, like kind of the main reason why we went with Baselight, which, was in a non-linear color grading system, and nobody used it really in North America back then as a commercial thing. Like it was used for long format stuff, but so, we're like taking a big kind of risk here, like getting 2 kind of base lights and get a film scanner, because still a lot was shot on film. The majority was still shot on film back then. And, and we had to like scan in these commercials, and I can't remember the frame per second, like maybe 12 frames. And I wish I could remember how. It wasn't fast. Let's put it that way. It was not fast for maybe 12 frames a minute or something like that for scanning. Like it was not fast. So,
wow.
There was all these sort of technical issues that we had to sort of sort out. But, and then there were people who were like, oh, this is going to be really cool. And other people were like sort of almost identical to the sort of digital versus film conversation. Right? It's like, that'll never take off. Film will be around forever. No one's ever going to shoot on digital. And they were saying the same thing. It's like, this will never take off. Who wants to do that? Like, and I was like, what? Like, because it was sort of like when you were an editor, you come in and see something on an Avid and it's all together. Obviously, you're seeing the edit in sequence, or even if it's so now you can see your final edit at the color suite in sequence all together, right? Yeah. And before then, it was still on negative. You'd have to put it up on the telecine, scan down or roll down to your shot, take do like head and tail a bit for the color grading and stuff. And then, next shot's on roll 4. Take it, wind it up, put on another roll. It was a much different process. Now you're seeing your shots back to back. It's like, a wide shot, close up, exterior, interior. Like you could really see how it worked. And it took off like that. And then, it was amazing how within a couple of years, it was just like we were just swamped. We just couldn't do all the work that was coming in. And then I think, kind of maybe fortunately for us, unfortunately for others, like the competition was slow to adjust. And then, so by that point, and then it's, they were getting the new gear, had to try to learn it. We were well into like how this was working and stuff like that. So, and then it just, so I think that, and so I think the reasoning behind it was like, there wasn't a lot of choice in Toronto. So, and we wanted to just do something different and kind of have a bit of control of it ourselves, because, and until then too, it was prohibitively expensive, like to buy like a telecine and set up a suite, it was like millions of dollars. So this new technology was like also a lot more cost effective in that sense. So,
right,
not cheap, but like doable.
yeah, less than millions.
Yeah, not much, but less.
And what do you think? So I know you kind of started in the color space, but then you ended up moving more to like VFX and CG. What made you decide to go that route?
Yeah, so we always had Stealing Time always had like in-house, like we had a flame and an artist on that. And so when we opened up Alter Ego, like we moved that over there, bought another one, had 2 flame artists. And it was, though, there's like back then, there were some really, and there still are, but like there were some really solid, amazing competition in Toronto, right? So we wanted to try and break into that. That was extremely difficult because there was a company like called Crush and Axis, and they were doing like the majority of the work. They had great people, great artists, and they were doing fantastic work. But we just kept at it, and slowly over time. And then we just sort of made it a real priority after, trying to think, probably after 3 years of being open, like we're like, let's really push this. And we also had more interest from employees internally about like venturing into different, motion graphics or CG and things like that. And, and so we kind of went out and hired people specifically to help us build the VFX side of the company. And, when we first started, we were like, the building that we're in is kind of like 3 buildings that are kind of made into one building. But so it's a little awkward in the sense that there's just, if like we have a whole floor, it sounds like it's really big, but because it's sort of 3 buildings, there's like 3 hallways and all this stuff. It's a little bit, the space is really cool. It's just a little bit inefficient perhaps, but we had one of these kind of pods, as we called it, when we first opened. And then in maybe 2014, 15, like we took another one because somebody was like moving out. And so we're like, and we just kind of expanded that way. We just sort of, I think, kind of went with the mentality almost of like, if we build it, like hopefully people come kind of thing, you know, and just kind of took risks, and they've mostly paid off.
So like you mentioned, obviously there's huge competition in that space initially, right? So like when you're, I guess you're faced with that competition, and you know maybe they have the top people working in the city at that point, like how do you go about like navigating, you know, bringing in talent that works at that level, you know, because obviously like the big fish tend to catch every person who's like up and coming, like, oh, I've always wanted to work there, you know, like that's the premier place. Like how does that happen?
I don't totally know. You know, I think part of it was we were playing off our color experience, and like, you know, we were just killing it in that. And so it sort of seemed like a natural fit, right? That's like, hey, you can do kind of everything here. It was hard though. Like it didn't just happen. We had to really work at it. And then, you know, like when we brought in this fellow named Andre, and then this guy, David Whiteson, who's still with us. And we have Darren Ackham, who's with us still. And, you know, we just sort of built these pieces, and it was just getting people in front of them. And you know, when David came, he was very well known. So that was great. That was maybe 2017. So it's time, right? Just took time, just keep at it and like kind of just keep going. And I mean, now I'd argue there's more competition. Like there's a bunch of places around, right? And they all do like good work. So there's, you know, it's we always sort of, you know, tell our people, it's like, it's not only your abilities in the chair and like how well you are as an artist, but it's, you know, it's building relationships and kind of maintaining those relationships and stuff, because it's a real relationship industry, and I think people sometimes don't realize that, you know.
Definitely. I feel like, especially, I don't know, as an editor, where at least the stereotype would be like you're always locked away, you know, in the dark room, just hunched over your computer for hours and hours and hours. I mean, I know for us, like coming into the industry, both of us, I would say, more introverted than extroverted. So it was a bit of a, you know, like I guess there's this kind of idea when you first come in, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna make cool videos and that'll be enough. You know, and then it's like, oh no, you actually you really gotta network, you gotta connect with people. And so that was like, I would say, a really big kind of punch in the face for us. It's like, okay, we really gotta get better at, you know, engaging people, talking to people, just building those skills. Because I mean, like it's crazy. You could be, I don't know, you could be like one of the top people in the world at what you do, but if you're not good at like networking, or if nobody knows what you're doing, then it's not going to lead to anything.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, because, you know, like Eric Whip, for instance, like, I mean, he's like enormously talented, like it's incredible. And I think he just built up such a huge following because he's so talented. And he's also like in the room, he's very good at that, like kind of like talking, engaging, explaining kind of what he's doing and stuff like that. He's very quick, and he's like, you know, always listening. So he's, you know, hearing people sort of talking, and it's like all of a sudden it's on the screen. And they're like, you mean like this? Kind of like, whoa, okay. And it's actually amazing. And that's one of the things I missed so much, like during the pandemic, is just being at the office, obviously, and around our staff and clients, but just going into some of the color suites and just sitting down and talking to the clients and then watching the work getting done. And because in the color suites, it's a lot of fun, right? It's real time. It's happening right in front of your eyes. There's no like, the VFX is great too, but it's like there's a lot of rendering going on, right? It's like, okay, we just got to render this now. And it's like, okay, people that make phone calls or read something. Whereas there's really no rendering on the color side. It's just real time happening right in front of you. And it's a great experience. Like, and I think that's another reason why, you know, we did so well, is just like the experience of it at our place is good. Plus we make amazing coffee. We're big on, like, Eric and Wade also my other partner, and they're both Australian. They're both like huge on coffee. And when they came to Toronto, like, the coffee here sucks. We got to do something. So they're big on coffee.
Are you going to be starting an alter ego coffee shop?
We've talked about that. Like we probably should have done that like 5 years ago or something. But
Speaking of the name,
it's funny too, though. We take it so like we make sure like everyone who works for us. Now we're gonna have to like retrain a bunch of people because we've had a bunch of hires over the pandemic and we're not really working at the office. But everyone is trained to make coffees like properly and do that kind of stuff. So it's like for clients and like so, and it's great. Right? You know, I'm happy to make coffees for clients, bring them in, and stuff like that, and everyone can kind of do it. It's kind of like a must-have at Alter Ego. So.
Yeah. I'm assuming you have like one of the like really nice coffee machines and not just like pods and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's like that was that was a $6,000 or $7,000 expense.
Oh, that's funny. I was actually curious. I forgot. I was going to ask this earlier, but how did the name Alter Ego, like, where did that come from?
Okay, so let me try to remember this, see if I can remember this correctly. So Stealing Time used a company for our. Oh wait, no. So no, we sat around. I remember we were sitting around. I'll get to the other thing. We were sitting around, and it was just sort of throwing out names. And a guy, pretty sure his name is Mike. Well, I know his name is Mike Moore. I'm pretty sure we were just like, there was like Lighthouse and I don't know, something like, and then he was like Alter Ego, because I think it was sort of like Alex owned the majority of Stealing Time and was owning the majority of the company, and we sort of like Alter Ego, and we were just like, what? Yeah, it was like, one of those moments where you heard it and it's like, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's just it. So, and then I was going to say, like, Stealing Time. I don't know if Stealing Time had a like amazing logo. It was like a kind of a running man made up of a bunch of numbers. And that was done by a company called Concrete Design here in Toronto. And then so we engaged with them to do the Alter Ego logo, and they came back with this like, and again, it was like they are so good at their job, and they were like this, and we're like, oh, yeah, that's good, yeah, that's good, oh yeah, that's pretty good. And then they dropped that A on us. We were like, yes, that is it. It was so simple, and it was like kind of flipped over, and we were just like, oh my god, like no wonder you guys make so much money, like you're so so that was fun. Yeah, it's funny. You're bringing back like the memories of all that time, like when we were kind of going through all of that stuff, and it was it was pretty exciting.
That's
it's like 15 years ago this year. Like in this fall will be 15 years since we kind of opened the doors. So in September.
That's a big. I feel like that's a big milestone. Congratulations.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, it's we're excited. We're happy to still be around.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, where and again, you can share it, you don't have to, but where do you see Alter Ego kind of like going in the future? Like, do you see yourself staying in the exact same space you're at and you're happy with it, or is there like anywhere else you kind of want to venture and try out?
We're getting into the space race with Elon Musk there. No.
The coffee race.
We've been Space Y. Space Y is what we're called. But it's like WHY. Space Y. Y. You know what? Like, I think the thing with Alter Ego is we've always been a company that's really embraced technology, as well, obviously, as creativity. And from our very origins, like just with the base lights and doing stuff non-linear and kind of taking that risk. And so we're big on technology. We're big on, workflow and pipeline and kind of doing stuff like really well and making sure. And we've heard from other people who've either come into the company or left the company to go to other places that it's like, wow, I didn't realize how tight and well everything kind of worked at Alter Ego on the file sharing and all that kind of stuff until I got somewhere else. And it's like, what, we're putting them on drives? What? Like, what do you mean? Can't we just drop it here and pick it up? And also just like new stuff, like right now we're getting really into like virtual wall production and the post on that. We're like super excited about that. We've done a couple projects already, and that's really cool. And so we're venturing down that. It's hard, right? Like our core business is like color, VFX, CG, motion design stuff. And I think that'll always be the core business and what we do, but we definitely, like the virtual wall stuff is still kind of part of the core business. It's just a bit of a different way of doing things, right? Like, so we're excited about that. But yeah, I mean, you know, we dabble in long format stuff now. Who knows if that grows a little bit in the future? Like, you know, it's a good kind of mix right now of kind of commercial and long form. I don't think we'll ever be out of commercials. We all enjoy it a lot. Great. It's like quick. And we love that aspect of it. I think that's why a lot of people stay in commercials. They love the sort of like, I'm on a project. It's a long project. It's like, you know, 6 weeks long or something like that. It's not like 2 years. And like Eric just finished up coloring, because I always call it TTYOL, 10,000 Years of Longing, the most recent film that's coming out.
I'm super stoked to see that.
Yeah, so Eric did the color on that, and that was all done remotely, which was great for us now, because when he's done that in the past with George Miller, like on Mad Max, he was gone for a long time down to Australia, which is, you know, it's hard. We miss him. It's like you're losing one of your top guys. It's a bit difficult, but that was really cool too. So yeah, that film like looks gorgeous, and so we're excited about that being released. I think the end of August, if I'm not mistaken. I just saw the trailer. We put the trailer on our Instagram the other day. But anyway, what was I talking about? Yeah, so I don't know. Future, I think a lot of the same, and I keep exploring the new stuff that's coming out, right? Like there's all these like things that are happening too, right? Like UHD, and like there's 4K and UHD and like all that stuff. So like we're like trying to stay on top of it all.
Totally. And how did you always start working on films like as soon as you started, or was it mainly commercials? And like if it was mainly commercials, like how do you move into the film space?
So yeah, that's a great question. We Eric did have this background with films, right? So even from the get-go, like he still took time to do some films. And then, you know, like some of the other, like it's mostly for us, it's really just color, right? Doing the films. Cause like as amazing as our VFX department is, there really isn't the capacity to do other work than just the work they're working on, which is mainly commercial, because they're just grinding all the time, right? But the colorists can kind of like squeeze, you know, usually the deal is it's like squeezing in around other projects, or, you know, like taking some specific time out just for that. But yeah, sort of from the get-go, we've always done like a few projects here and there. And yeah, so we'll continue. It's more now than at the beginning. So that's cool. But
so
yeah, and we've done, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, would you say, so it sounds like it's more about like passion projects than like the film side of things.
Yeah, a lot of, and some of the, just trying to think. Yeah, probably. Yeah, because we've, you know, like I know like Connor Fisher, who was with us, he came out of film school, and then he had a lot of friends who were like in the film industry, indie film kind of stuff. He was doing tons of indie films and stuff like that, which was like really cool and stuff. So it's not best financially, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But fun, yeah, passion. And I think, you know, like the artists need that. Yeah, you know, how many hamburgers can you color grade and not sort of, you know, although there's like real challenges to that, so sometimes it's fun to work on something different. So
definitely. Well, actually, I was curious, and I mean, I don't know if you've talked about Mad Max so much that, you know, you want to hear another word about it, but I was very curious about, you know, like how maybe the relationship with George Miller came about, and you know, obviously Eric rated now his latest piece as well. So how did that kind of all get started?
That was purely through Eric. So okay. He had that pre-existing kind of relationship. So it was, yeah, it's his contact, it's his thing. So that's it. That's a great answer there. Yeah.
Okay, so cool. So obviously, you know, you've been in the industry for quite some time, and this is something I'm always curious about. Like, from your perspective, what do you think really like differentiates people who have like, you know, like really great success in the industry from people who, you know, maybe just like make it as like your average level, I don't know, grader or whatever they're doing?
Yeah. I don't know. You know, there's probably a few things. Like, it's so hard. So many factors. I don't know if you can really pinpoint it. Like, you know, we were talking earlier just about relationship building and things like that. Like, I've seen people who are, you know, obviously kind of good at their job, but do tons of work, and they're just like, I don't know, they just have such charisma or whatever it is, and like people just are attracted to that and like love working with them. And maybe they're not the best, but they're good, right?
Right.
And then there's like, you know, I would argue Eric's one of the best colorists in the world, right? Like, so there's just like it's, and he's so passionate about his work, like it oozes out of him. So I think when you're working with him, it's really evident that he's like super into it and loves doing this and stuff like that. Yeah, I think it's got to be a mix of sort of that talent and sort of, you know, your charisma and passion for stuff. Like, and I don't know what kind of percentages of each or how that mix necessarily happens. And listen, you know, probably more than a pinch of luck, right? Like, I think, you know, it's a lot of people, maybe it's a bit of right place, right time, and you sort of slip in at a good timing, and then you're on your way, right? So, or a great opportunity comes your way. So, you know, I think it's really hard to pinpoint that.
It's like that old saying, you got to be good to be lucky, but you got to be lucky to be good.
Yeah, exactly. It's like luck is just when, you know, preparation meets opportunity, right?
But
So, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Like,
And actually, speaking on that, whenever you guys do any hiring, like how do you find either colors or VFX people who like you think would be the best, or it's like that you think you can elevate their game? Is there like a specific thing that you look for when you see their work?
yeah. So a lot of our hiring is for sort of more like entry level roles, junior roles, kind of stuff like that. So it's that, you know, we're looking for like personality, obviously smarts, like a lot of and passion for post production, and yeah, like great personalities, team fit. Like, we're really big on that. Like, you know, we've got like 40-ish people in the office, just over 40, or not in all the time, but like just want to have a great team, right? And a team that connects and works well together and stuff like that. Like, I think if people are really smart and, you know, are very interested in what they're doing, they'll learn stuff quickly, right? Like, if they've got that kind of ability, if they've maybe been to a college or university that for post-production or production or stuff like that, then I think, or media, like, then they're probably well on their way. A lot of it is personality and fit. And I don't know, I think, you know, if it's a more senior role, then we probably know of them if they are in Toronto and stuff like that. And we know if they're like good, almost, I don't know. I don't know any bad people necessarily, right? Like, they're all like kind of good people. And it's just sort of like, then I think it just comes down to like, yeah, will you fit into our company and our ethos, and you know, will you succeed as well or better here? You know, then we'll kind of do that. So.
And have you hired anybody who's not into coffee?
Oh no, I think so. Yeah, there's definitely a few people who are not coffee drinkers, and they're like, I have to learn how to make coffee. It's like, yep, you gotta learn how to make it. You don't have to drink it, but you gotta learn how to make it.
that's the number one the number one rule.
Yeah,
It's in
do
the
you like
contract.
coffee?
Yeah.
No. Are you willing to learn to make coffee?
If yes, you've got a spot.
Yeah.
What do you think? This is something I always like to ask people. What's the craziest thing, if you're allowed to talk about it? What's the craziest thing that's happened to you in your career?
Because we have heard, and you kind of touched on it in the very beginning, we've heard some pretty crazy stories, especially in the 90s, early 2000s in the film industry.
Yeah.
And I feel like everybody has, especially if you've been in the film industry for this long, it's like you probably have a few things here and there. But yeah.
I think like that first year I was working, I think it was the summer. I think I worked 45 days in a row. like without a day off. Like it was so busy. And then it was just sort of, you got lost in the shuffle, like, cause I was sort of assisting a couple of different editors. And then, so I hit my breaking point. I was like, I think I tried to quit, and they were like, you can't quit. Here's some more money. And I'm like, I need time off. Like, I don't know. I'm there. I know I've heard other stories too. Like I heard a story, I know this is true, but like back in there was a job done for, I think it was a beer job, and somebody had like a new kind of assistant, and they're like, hey, can you clean up this back room? Anyway, long story short, they threw the negative in the garbage. Like, and the job hadn't been completed yet. They hadn't gone to color correction or anything yet. So like that job had to have been completed off of, and that was back in the day. So this actually changed the way we did stuff. Because back then, like you get the negative and then you get your dailies just on 3/4 inch tape.
Right.
And then this happened. And for some reason, I think they had like a Betacam SP as well. So, but I think they did their final color grade like off of a Betacam SP tape. And we were like, okay, we're gonna make sure we ask for digi-Betacams of every kind of every daily, like all the dailies like that we come, just in case and like something like that happens again, right? Like fortunately for everybody, they were really understanding, I think. And I think it went, like, it wasn't our company. I'm not gonna obviously say who it was, but it was yeah, stuff like that. Like nothing too crazy. Like just like some long days, like crazy long projects that are just like, through weekends, like 20 hours a day type of thing, just to finish stuff. Like more like stuff like that, you know.
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah. Because
no people dying or anything.
Well, the reason we asked is we were talking to someone a couple weeks ago, and they were telling us like this blew our minds, but they were telling us that like when projects were being budgeted out back in the day, you'd literally have like a budget for like I don't know how to say it other than like cocaine and hookers. Like like it was just like a separate like thing for like just wild like entertainment, like just a crazy like I was like
I think though that was the world back then, you know what I mean? Like I remember talking to a guy who was in banking, right, and investing, and he was saying he used to take clients to the F1 in Montreal, and he's like, I wouldn't, like, it would cost me $65,000 for the weekend. And he's like, now if I spend $650, I'll get my hand slapped, kind of thing, right? So I think that was a time in the maybe 80s, 90s. You know, to be honest, like on post-production, we didn't see like kind of crazy stuff. Like budgets were more healthy and timelines and stuff like that. But it was also just the way we worked, and it was a little slower, obviously, because of technology and stuff. But I mean, yeah, I think in production, maybe there was some stuff like that. I don't know. Like I never saw any of that kind of stuff. Like, you know, post, there was some crazy stuff happening, but nothing like
nothing along those lines. Yeah, the craziest story that we heard related to that was the fact that someone wanted to shoot a project, and it was supposed to be somewhere in, like, it was supposed to look like Atlanta, Canada, but they went and shot in Chile. Because the entertainment, let's say, was less expensive.
Yeah, it's always funny, like the travel jobs and stuff. But I mean, like we, you know, the CIBC Penguins.
Yep.
So that is, those were originally, when they came out, they were all puppeted penguins, right? And they were by, gosh, the name is slipping my company, but it's a company in Los Angeles who built those. Like, and they've done like all the biggest like feature film with kind of puppeted animatronic kind of like thing. But these penguins, like, we were like, why don't you make them a CG? Like, let's make CG penguins. Cause like part of the issue was like, you know, there's cost implications involved because they have to be puppeted, and those are like SAG actors and Los Angeles and flying up and all this other stuff. But, you know, it was like the limitations on creative, right? Because it's puppeted, right? You know, it's like, we want the penguin to climb a mountain. It's like, how do we do this with 3 puppeteers kind of trying to operate this penguin kind of thing? Lots of post involved. So we went out and we built a penguin in CG, and we shot a like commercial, basically, a little piece, and kind of pitched it to CIBC, like, why don't you do it this way? And after about a year, like they did. So now we're doing all the Penguin CG, right? Like, and that was stuff like that we find really fun, right? Like that's like cool. Now we're changing the way people are doing stuff because we can, and we think it's like the right thing to do. So that's
Yeah, I
kind of
mean,
fun.
that's crazy. That like,
Yeah.
well, it's interesting. I feel like the industry is just like slow to adapt, like you were talking about, like, and willing to be on the, like, when you're willing to be on the cutting edge, the leading edge of that transition. I feel like it's a great boon. Like, I mean, just all the stuff you hear about, even the way that movies are still made in like LA, or like just all that kind of stuff, like you just mentioned, like it seems so, I guess, inefficient. And
Yeah.
like, so it's cool to talk to you, and like obviously Alter Ego is on that cutting edge. Like that's one of your, I mean, that's like you were talking about earlier, like I would say that's one of the biggest reasons like you guys stand out, is you're willing to push the boundaries that way.
Yeah. We try, like we're very interested in like, learning new stuff and new technology and whatnot. Like we try to keep up with that.
Is there any new tech that you're kind of interested in right now?
Well, I would say like I was saying before, that virtual wall stuff, the Unreal Engine, like that kind of thing is sort of our what we're really focusing on now. Like there's probably some other stuff that the sort of artists are like have their eyes on that I don't know about or haven't talked about, whatever. They're probably like geeking out together about it, but they probably don't tell me. They probably think I'm not interested or whatever. But
Yeah.
So what type of stuff do you think will be possible to do with Unreal Engine 5 compared to kind of the previous version?
oh, I mean, you know what? I'm not qualified to answer that. Like, I am caught
I
up
thought I'd
on
ask.
yeah.
Shot in the
They're
dirt.
trying to trip me up there. Screw you.
It's like I know the best coffee, but that's as far
Yeah.
as that goes.
um one question I was also curious about, given your experience in the industry, what do you think is like the most difficult obstacle to overcome, like both that you've faced, and also maybe for people, coming into the post industry today?
I think like when I came in, I was a bit lucky that it was just a boom when I, late mid 90s when I came in, it was booming. There was like no shortage of work kind of thing. That's a really good question. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like there are so many companies now doing stuff, and like, and things are, for instance, my wife was just hired by Loblaws, like to do, run kind of their in-house post company. So like stuff's happening like there. Like there's so many freelance. I think there's so many opportunities now. Like I don't know. Like I mean, I would just sort of probably always say, and I think this could be, you're probably your own obstacle. Like if you're not meeting people, getting out there, like working hard. Like I don't know. It's sort of like I don't know. That's a good question. Like I don't honestly know the answer, other than maybe it's like you're your own obstacle. Like I'm very much open to talking to kind of anybody, and people reach out, and I sort of like, if I'm talking to them and they looking for work, I'm like, well, we don't have anything now, but like stay in touch. Right? Just like you don't email me too often, but like if you email me, I'll get back to you and like let you know kind of what's happening and things like that. But yeah, and I try to there's with younger people coming in, I try to point them in the right direction. If we don't have anything in our company, and just sort of like stay in touch. And yeah, I don't know. It's good. It's good to see the younger people like coming in. And I think, if anything too, now, maybe the obstacle a little bit is there's so much technology that was never available to people in colleges and stuff like that, that's now available because of like a lot cheaper, and kids are growing up with it, and they're editing their own things and shooting stuff and all sorts of stuff that, you really didn't have access to when I grew up. And so it's probably on the one hand really great because maybe people are more focused and know what they want to do. On the other hand, there's lots of people vying for those jobs now because, you know, like even 5-7 years ago, nobody really knew what a colorist was, unless you were really kind of sort of into it and like film and stuff like that. But like people would come out like, I never even knew about this job. Kind of like, this is so cool. Like, you know, so now there's maybe a bit more competition because so many like kids or people in their early 20s know about this stuff, right? So.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's a very fair point. I mean, I think that's kind of like us, you know, when we like, I mean, everything's accessible now, whether it's post-production software or like, I mean, you used to not be able to, there's no way like 30 years ago really that you could go out and like shoot something by yourself, get it fully, like edit it yourself, like do everything yourself.
Yeah.
And
how do you do that? Like get a like fucking $50,000 film camera with a $200,000 lens and like buy like all the film and get it processed for a, whatever it is, like $1 a foot. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's like, that's why those production, like it was expensive to shoot something, right? And it's still like, but you know, you budget, you know, 10,000 feet of film. It's like, that's a lot of film, right? I remember doing it, like working on a job in post early when I was at that company early in my career. Like there was this guy, Gillian Proctor. He was like a director and mainly did like food stuff and pouring. And he shot tons of like sort of like high speed stuff. And it was a beer commercial again. And like he shot like 25,000 feet of film at like 1,200 fucking frames a second or something, you know, and it was just like one roll of film would be one take sort of thing. And it was like, and it was just for the beer pours and stuff like that. And it's like, that was like really cool. I think that was like sort of like, you know, near the end of the heyday of film because it was sort of like this mid to late 90s. But it was like, you know, you get people like, okay, you have the director, and then you'd have another person who's just shooting like product that's like super high speed, but they were so good at lighting it and so good at, you know, shooting it and stuff like that. It was like a true kind of talent, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, film is like way less forgiving than digital, so I feel like the how much I feel like you have to know about your craft and the dedication to it might have been like even more so back then, like you were just saying, than it might be today. Because it's like, oh, I mean, how many times have you heard the phrase, "Oh, we'll just fix it in post"?
Well, that's why we made T-shirts that said "Fix it on set," right? They were a huge hit. Like we were like, let's do this. It'll be kind of fun. Like I had people from Los Angeles calling me, "Hey man, are you the company that?" Yeah, here, I'll send you a T-shirt. Like, yeah. And people would be like, "Dad," like they'd be like, "Yeah, I was like in Chile and I saw some guy wearing this Fixed on Set T-shirt." I'm like, "Wow, yeah, they've really made their way around the world, haven't they?" So I was like, we should like open up like an online store and just sold them. I bet we could have sold them for $30 a pop. We're just giving them away. Anyway.
That's so funny. And honestly, kind of speaking about things outside of the industry, I know before we started the podcast, you were kind of mentioning golf. Is there what else are you into on your free time?
Oh well, I don't have a ton of free time because I've got I'm in a second marriage, so I have two young kids. I have a 3.5-year-old and almost 2-year-old, and as well as like a daughter who's just graduating high school and a son who's just finishing up grade 9. So. Yeah, a lot of my time is with kids. My son plays hockey and stuff, and then the new guys are going to start doing more and more stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Like there's a lot of like family stuff, friends and family stuff. But yeah, I like the golf. I play hockey still, like in a men's league, and Tuesday night beer league is like a lot of fun. And yeah, I don't know. Like yeah, that's about it.
Are you a Leafs fan?
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah. I'm a Leaf fan too.
I feel like I was wearing my like Leafs hat recently and someone's like, wow. And I saw another guy, we just looked at each other like,
yeah.
Still wearing it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's good to see the Rangers beat Tampa 6-2 last night. Wow. I didn't watch the game. I wish I watched it.
I watched a little bit of it, but I'm just like I'm just thinking like I don't know, man. Like Tampa's gonna be a tough out. I mean, we beat them 5-0 first game, and then they.
Yeah.
They don't lose 2 in a row. It's impossible. It's been 17.
I know. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think both those series will be real interesting. I only watched the highlights of the Edmonton Colorado game, but like what a shootout that was. That's crazy. So.
We had,
and again, I don't like Mike Smith doesn't have back-to-back bad games. So I'll be curious to see if they put him back in, in Edmonton. But yeah.
Elia's eyes glaze over every time I start talking about hockey. Well, I think that's probably a good place to finish up.
I guess one last, not question, but is there anything that you want to say to the people watching, or anything that you want to kind of put out in the world? Anything you want to plug in?
I don't know. Go to alteregopost.com. Check us out. Always willing to work. No, I don't know. Just we're a fun, awesome, talented group of people, and we love doing work and collaborating with people and stuff like that. So I really appreciate the time, guys. It's been like you've dredged up some of my fond memories of the past. It's been good kind of thinking about that, and a chance to talk about what we do. It's exciting, right? Like I've been in this industry, like you mentioned, for quite a long time now, and I still love it. I still get excited about it, and even though we've seen I think for the last 15 years we've been like, post is fucked. We're like, no, budgets are dying. We're gonna have employing all in house, and I think to be honest, it's it's really healthy right now. It's super busy in Toronto, and there's a lot of competition, but everyone seems to be getting a lot of work, and it's fantastic. It's a great time to be doing this, and I hope it can last it's gotta last for at least 15 more years. I got
after
university.
Then it's our problem.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.